Corey Goode's answers to the questions are decent and noteworthy. Happy viewing.
And this is controversial. When the astronauts actually landed on the moon in 1969, didn't they see any signs of other life on the moon if it was so inhabited at that time? Did Neil Armstrong know that something was going on? Or did he go to his grave believing that he was the first man to step on the moon? Now, there's a lot of stuff that she might not be aware of that others have done to help answer that question. But again, the focus here is on what you know personally, what you encountered personally in your days in the space program and with the Alliance now.
I don't know what these astronauts knew. It has always been, from the beginning and even now, common for astronauts to be blank slated.
Really? Even NASA astronauts were getting blank slated?
Yeah.
Really?
So there might be stuff that some of them have.
And for those who don't know what blank slating is, could you just briefly explain?
They used to do it through chemicals, but now they can do it electronically with fields, affect your memory and give you a screen memory.
Okay.
I can't really speak for what they remember.
Well, let's toss out a couple data points. Number one, Neil Armstrong totally shunned public appearances. Did not want to go talk to any crowds. There are quotes of him saying that he felt like they were all used, that they were duped. He became a severe alcoholic. He basically drank himself to death. And there are reports that he saw a domed or rounded craft on the edge of a crater when they had the first Apollo landing, and he was the first one to walk out there. And that he was basically saying, somebody else has been here before us.
Right.
So did you ever hear about that in your work on the inside, that event?
Well, yeah, I heard that the astronauts did go up to the moon, that they didn't pick a good place to land. It's very diplomatically split up piece of real estate. They further angered people when they smashed a command module or something into the moon like a missile, and they were asked not to come back.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I read and was told. I don't know if all of the landings really happened or if they did a landing, screwed it up so bad that, but they continued to do fly arounds, and there definitely were quite a bit of photographs and reports of what they photographed on the surface of the moon.
Well, there's a lot of data, and obviously this is not really your bailiwick as much as others who have studied this, but the astronauts had a code apparently that was Santa Claus for extraterrestrial activity, and they come around the backside of the moon and they go back into radio range,
what
and then
they thought
say,
was
ladies and gentlemen of America, I'm happy to announce that there is a Santa Claus. And that was live and really kind of freaked people out. Like, why did he say that? What's going on there?
Yeah, just about all the astronauts have seen something flying around out in space.
Our director, Jay Widener, he is sort of the grand poobah of lunar landing hoax. And his evidence is absolutely compelling that there was apparently a set also built in which it could appear that they were on the moon, but they really weren't. And it appears that the director, Stanley Kubrick, was involved with that after his work in the movie 2001. Did you encounter any direct knowledge about that they had the opportunity to do a set as well as landing on the actual moon?
I know they landed on the moon, but I wouldn't put it past them at all. They do that type of Hollywood deception kind of stuff even up until present time. It wouldn't surprise me.
Well, the insider Henry Deacon, who has incredible amounts of overlap with his space program background as yours, although you seem to have experienced aspects of it that he never came in contact with. He did tell me that they built a set on Earth as well as doing the actual moon missions because they were in a race with the Russians to get to the moon. They did not want it to fail. They had to fake that it succeeded even if it did fail so they wouldn't lose that publicity war. And he also said that the radiation was spiking so much on the moon's surface that a lot of the footage that they tried to shoot out there was unusable because the radiation would overexpose the film. So by having a set that was local here on Earth, they could conveniently mock up what was happening out there. So we do have insider testimony that I've personally had, vetted out these people's credentials, confirming that the moon landings did happen and that they were faked. And this is one of the things that skeptics have attacked Jay for, which is not fair. He's not saying that nobody landed on the moon. It was both.
Right.
That appears to be what happened.
I would buy that. I would at least look at it closely.
Well, it's the government, right? They always want to have a backup plan. They don't want to be embarrassed. They didn't know if this was going to work. They're sending these guys up there with crappy technology that was way behind what they were actually using. And let's not forget that NASA, in the 1957 charter, this is the Richard C. Hoagland stuff now, NASA was chartered as a defense agency of the United States government that could classify information deemed inimical to national security.
Right. All images go through the NSA before they hit us.
That I did not know.
Yeah.
All right. The next question is from a user named, well, this is probably not his real name, Manticore. And here we go. Corey, you mentioned that the Lunar Operations Command, or LOC, may have been started by the Nazis during World War II. I think it was actually pre-World War II. I'm curious, if they developed the ability to travel to the moon during World War II, wouldn't they have had the technology to win the war? Putting it differently, how could they have developed the technology to travel to the moon, or were they helped by the Alliance or some other group? Well, those are really two different questions, so let's come back to the second one. We'll start with the first one, which would be, if the Nazis developed the ability to travel to the moon during World War II, wouldn't they have also had the technology to win World War II?
Well, you can look at it two ways. Maybe they just changed tactics and they did win World War II.
Depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. They went to a high-tech, instead of a blunt force war of attrition that they were losing and moving into a horrific technological war. They developed high technology, a breakaway civilization that was mostly made up of secret societies that predated the Nazis hundreds
Sure.
of years at least. And these societies later on infiltrated the West and took over the military-industrial complex, later on took over the governments and the banking anyway. So I really don't see how they lost in the end.
Wouldn't you also argue that if they used this advanced technology in the war too much, that it would tip off to the world that they had it, which could then compromise their operational security?
Yes, and they had developed a breakaway civilization that they were wanting to keep secret, and they also had an interest in keeping things status quo, keeping the Babylonian money magic system in place, being able to manipulate the world as it was, while they had their own breakaway civilization that had advanced technology, and they had high plans on colonizing the solar system, and they needed the industrial might of the West. So they found a way of making their enemy their tool.
Wouldn't you also say that it's almost like a magic trick? You know, with the magic, the magician has his hand up here, but at the same time he's reaching into his pocket for the next trick.
Diversion.
It appears that they lost, But hey, they got this awesome base in Antarctica. They got this awesome base on the moon. They're starting to build awesome bases on Mars. So did they really lose in their mind if they have these platforms to work off of? Okay, so let's go to the second part of the question then. To put it differently, how could they have developed the technology to travel to the moon, or were they helped by the Alliance, which didn't really exist at that point, or some other group?
The Germans they're brilliant and already well ahead, and their scientists weren't doing what the Western scientists were. A lot of their scientists were from the Thule Society and these other groups, and they didn't rule out the supernatural and only stick to the quantifiable like Western science does. And they were getting better results. Not only that, they were doing major expeditions because they believed in ancient aliens and ancient civilizations of Earth that were advanced and had advanced technology, and they were looking seriously into that past and were finding manuscripts that gave detailed information on how to reconstruct that technology. So they were getting pretty far on their own. And
well, apparently they didn't just believe in inner Earth civilizations, they made contact with them,
right,
which we've discussed.
They were also doing quite a bit of, a lot of people call it channeling, but they were doing a lot of broadcasting out into the cosmos, trying to make contact with beings.
Yeah.
And they did make contact with inner Earth beings and some of these negative non-terrestrial beings, and they received help from both.
Let's take the next question. And this is from Ollie's Back. I would like to know where these people came from that are in these colonies. Are these all the people that were on the side of milk cartons?
Most of these people have been there on these colonies for generations now. There were what we've talked about, the brain drain that occurred across the world, where they took scientists, engineers, people from everything that you would need to have a new society, colony, offered them positions, and in some cases just took them.
Well,
there were a couple
Peterson's
waves.
data was that it started in the 1950s and that it amounted to, in those early years, 50s and 60s, it amounted to 60 million people, and that they cherry-picked the best and the brightest scientific minds from all the different nations of the world, and these people were just told that they were going abroad, and they also seemed to preferentially pick people who had very few friends or social interactions. You'd have to write a bunch of postcards before you went, and then they'd send them out over an interval of several years' time so that people got the sense that you were gradually fading out of contact with them.
Right. And this brain drain happened in waves.
Right.
And not only that, there were people that in common era that were just being approached and told, hey, we've got this job. It's a great honor to be offered this. You can help save the world, or either that or that something's about to happen to the planet. You can save your family by moving to one of these colonies. Here's a kind of like a brochure kind of thing. It looks like the Jetsons, looks wonderful, utopic. But when they arrive there, it's a totally different reality.
Well, and if people have seen the Mars colony inspection episodes, they remember where that guy asked you where you were from.
Yeah.
Who was up
Texas,
in the colony.
yeah.
You said Texas, and why was that so shocking to them?
Well, because that colony had been told that the world had suffered a cataclysm and the surface was not survivable. And not only did I say I was from Texas, but I had a sunburn and I smelled like aloe, and I didn't smell right. I didn't smell like someone that had lived on a colony or lived in on a vessel or out in space. I smelled totally foreign to them.
To get to the other part of the question then, he's kind of digging for, are these people that are going missing and are being, are they being abducted, are they dying, but all these missing people each year that are showing up on the milk cartons, are there people being pulled into the space program that way, where it's involuntary conscription and abduction, and then they just get stuck up there?
That is occurring, and there's also, we've discussed the more disturbing aspect of approximately 1 million people going missing on the Earth every year that are used in a interstellar slave trade system that is pretty disturbing, that our own people are taking part in.
Somebody might want me to ask this, which we haven't quite gotten to, is, are they also recruiting people now? Are they pulling people out of the military?
They're still recruiting people from the military.
But there are still people getting pulled in now, both on this sort of captive level as well as on an official and invitation level.
Right. A lot of people in the Air Force and Navy are being invited in these, even in some of these 20 and back programs.
Right. Okay, cool.